Hello and welcome to Wave Support. I see from your case that you have a patient who has keratoconus with a rather high prescription. In the right eye, I understand that your fit is doing reasonably well, but you have a bit of an over-refraction. In the left eye, you're struggling with both the over-refraction and the fit. Well, if you look at the right lens, as you know, with keratoconus patients, quite often the rules go out the window, and so I generally find if the lens is fitting reasonably well, even if it isn't the perfect looking fit on the eye, as long as it's physiologically okay to wear, I'm not in a huge hurry to make a lot of changes. So with that said, this right lens, it looks reasonably good. You know, if anything, it looks like you might have some down turners here right at the very edge. If there were some awareness issues, you could click up on that a couple, 3 or 4 clicks to bring that up a little bit more. As far as the over-refraction goes, I didn't see what your corrected acuity was. However, you can just add in the spherical over-refraction, and once this patient wears the lens for a while, that vision may stabilize a little bit more. There's also some debate in the WAVE group whether or not we should use a G-SIM or a freeform design in a patient like this. Since you have a pretty symmetrical looking cone and it's very centrally located, I tend to try to keep them as simple as possible. If you struggle with the optics, I might be inclined to try a G-SIM lens. The main reason being is the freeform, as you know, is more of a freeform back surface, and I think there's, in theory, a little more potential to induce some optical aberration by having so many curves ground on the back surface of that lens. In theory, it should make a big difference whether you go between the two, but I think from a calculation standpoint, it's simpler for WAVE if you're just in a G-SIM format, so that would be one consideration there. But overall, that right lens looks pretty good. If we look at the left lens, I know you had some difficulty with some mid-peripheral bearing, and if we look at this design, I'll pull it over here. If we look at the simulated K rating, you'll see where we actually have that bearing area, and we have almost a little bit extra clearance in the middle. And again, you're in a kind of free-form design. I see that's a little more decentered here, and this lens actually looks reasonably good, but you do have quite a bit of clearance here, and you can actually see where this bearing area is here. If you click over to the 560 micron, you'll actually you can almost visualize how you've got this landing zone out here as being pretty tight and a little more clearance up here toward the middle. So the easiest way to adjust that mid-peripheral curve is just click up on that blue dot a number of times, and that will bring it up. Another way, sometimes you can do it by clicking up or down on the red dot. I find it most helpful if you're working in the blue to pink that landing zone, just bring that up a little bit higher, and that you'll see that flattens that area out a little bit more. Another way to do it, I did kind of mocked up a lens here for you, and this one I used the G-SIM design. What I did also, I also increased this back surface OZ a little bit. Since we're a little off-centered here, I want to try to keep a little bit larger back surface OZ. And although it should only relate more to the fit, I just like to keep that a little bit larger if we can. So by doing that, you'll notice I've created a lens that seems to have a little bit more of a even distribution out there and a little more clearance in that area. If you notice, if you compare the peripheral curve in this lens compared to yours, we get a little bit flatter curvature out here if we kind of compare them. In this reading right here, you've got about a 680. It's a little flatter, whereas your original design is closer to a 660. So it does flatten up that peripheral curve a little bit. So that would be one way to do it. Just a comment on introducing over-refractions. One thing that I found very helpful, in case you haven't discovered it yet, this tool for trial lens data. Whenever I'm fitting most of these lenses, especially some of these weird corneas, I try to put a lens of known parameters on the eye, and then to get as good of a refraction over the top of that as I can, and incorporate that in this box. And quite often I find that gets your final lens very, very close to being spot on. So with those minor adjustments, I think you should do well with this case. As you know, keratoconus lenses can be very challenging, and quite often you just have to make a few little adjustments as you go, but I think you should do well overall with this patient. Anyways, I wish you well, and thank you for contacting Wave Support. Have a great day.